What is going on to all my Marvel MCU Skrull Secret Invasion fans out there? We are here. The aliens have arrived, Amanda. It's perfect timing, to say the least. But myself and Amanda, who you all can see on the screen now, who I have had the honor and privilege to be collaborating with we were talking off screen for the past 3 years. We've covered all the shows, Amanda, and we have now come to the point where we have Skrulls, we got Nick Fury back. It's an invasion going on, and we are here to talk about the first episode. Full spoilers. So just a disclaimer, myself and Amanda were lucky enough to see the first 2 episodes, but in this particular video, we're just talking about episode 1. And maybe when we get to the end of this video, we might give you guys like a little sneak peek, a little preview of what you can expect with episode 2. But again, this will be strictly episode 1 spoilers. But before we get into it, I want to thank y'all for clicking on the video. Do us a favor if you're enjoying the conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. Consider sharing. Comments. I want to know what y'all thought about this episode from a tonal standpoint, the themes, the characters, the Easter eggs. Are you excited for what's ahead? Let us know in the comments. And also subscribe to the channel, but also to my special guest who I have on the screen here, who we're going to talk about in a second. Subscribe to Amanda's channel. But Amanda, how are you doing?
It's been good, and I'm really happy that we can still do this. We can get together for Marvel shows like this. So I'm excited. And the first episode was pretty steady. It was solid.
It was interesting, Amanda. I'm rocking. I see you got your cap behind you, your poster. I'm rocking my cap shirt. We're both, for those that are maybe new to watching one of our breakdowns, we're both Captain America fans. The films and the Winter Soldier show was solid. So this definitely is a show that, as they've advertised, grounded, gritty, spy espionage thriller. And I think this first episode definitely displays all those themes. But before we get into our actual breakdown, Amanda, just question for myself and letting the audience know. As I said, we've covered all the Marvel shows. We've seen all the Marvel movies. Phase 4, we're in the Phase 5. With all that being said, Amanda, what was your anticipation level for Secret Invasion after all the events of Multiverse, Kangs, Guardians saying goodbye? What were you at before pressing play on this first episode?
I didn't go in with any expectations, to be honest. I think given how the 6 episodes have been for each season that we've gotten for each series, I was obviously apprehensive because they don't know how to make it like a tight-knit story in 6 episodes. And we've always talked about that towards the end. It doesn't work out. But with Secret Invasion, the second I pressed play, for me, it was like, it felt so grounded already. And I was like, no multiverse stuff. I don't have to worry about timelines or like something popping up. I didn't have to worry about any of that. And I think, considering even after watching The Flash and, Across the Spider-Verse, it's been really multiverse heavy. So I think that's why I changed my tune a bit on Secret Invasion to be more of like the boots on the ground spy thriller that, we've been lacking out of all the shows. Like, I'm surprised because the last spy thriller technically was Black Widow, because I don't consider Hawkeye one. It was Black Widow for the movie. And I'm like, we're deprived. So we got Secret Invasion.
Well, first off, like you mentioned, the 6th episode, as they're labeling this as like a special event, I'm familiar with the Secret Invasion comic book run. And this, if you're familiar with the comic book run, this is more than 6 episodes. Like, this can be its own saga if they wanted it to be within the MCU. So I was a little bit nervous about that. But then when I heard that they're taking it serious, they have this amazing cast, they have a plan that it seems they have in place, then I got excited. And then, as you mentioned, the Captain America of it all, boots on the ground. I love me some Guardians. I love intergalactic science fiction, multiversal stuff, but it does weigh on you. And if I'm being honest, the only multiversal thing that I've enjoyed so far in Phase 4 and 5 has been Loki. Everything else, Multiverse of Madness, didn't really hit those beats. Kang, or I should say the Kang film, but Ant-Man Quantumanium, aka the Kang film, that didn't really hit the mark for me. So I'm ready to get back on Earth. Even though we got little alien green creatures running around in this show, it still feels very grounded, like you said. So I was looking forward to it. And here we are talking about it. So again, full spoilers ahead on this first episode, which, as we're pre-recording this, I don't think they have like episode titles. They're just called episode 1, episode 2. But if I were to just throw an episode name at this first episode, I would say it would be titled "It Was You." And as we'll get to Maria Hill's line at the end, that's what, if they were to title it, that's my title, Amanda. Do you have this title before we break it down? Do you like that title? Do you have
love that. I think that
Was
works
You?
incredibly well.
All right.
So
That's
vague.
the title. Yeah,
Killed
that's our title here.
admire you.
Is it's episode 1. It Was You. So we open up in Moscow, present day, which I think they've clarified online. It takes place after She-Hulk, which I think is we're in the MCU timelines all over the place. I think we're 2025, 2026.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's go with it.
Present day. We'll just say present day. And they already showed the scene online where we get Agent Ross, who is kind of, behind the corners, being very, again, spy espionage. She's meeting with this other agent by the name of Agent Prescott, who I believe first time we've met this character. And he has some information for Agent Ross, Amanda, and that is there's a conspiracy that he has involving Skrulls. And as he's detailing this information, he gives us kind of exposition for those that might forgot that Nick Fury and Captain Marvel back in their film established they were promised to give the Skrulls a place to live, which, just kind of thinking about it, Amanda, it's like you want 2 people to find a settlement for 1 million people. It's like, that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure on 2 people, but we'll get into that. But just that first scene, Amanda, again, we talk about the grittiness, the spy espionage. What did you think about this opening scene as it is before we get to the ultimate reveal? How did you feel about the tone and the scene? And did it work for you, just kind of setting the stage?
I love this opening. I loved it. I think we don't give credit to Martin Freeman because he's such a minor character, but he's been so consistent throughout the MCU. And I really love that we saw him in this opening. But the tone is so different than what we've seen with other shows and almost in line with Black Widow. But I think it's a bit darker, which I can appreciate. And it just... even like the score creeping in, coming out of the shadows, the action in this opening, it felt a lot like our favorite film, The Winter Soldier. I think that's why like it clicked for me. I think it clicked for you as well, because it just has that hint of something so familiar. And I think that's what I've personally been missing from the Phase 4 MCU films, is that familiarity of what the MCU was. That's what I got here. And you got the information that you needed, even though it was a little bit, there was exposition. I don't think a lot of people are that tied to Captain Marvel to remember.
That's a great point, Amanda. Yeah.
I want to say it. Like, I said it in my review. I'm like, no one remembers Captain Marvel. I had to like
rewatchable.
It's not.
But if I'm being honest, not to cut you off, I might revisit Captain Marvel sometime in the middle of this show, or maybe at the end of the show, because there were like, oh yeah, that did happen in that movie.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many, right? And then the placement of Captain Marvel. I'm getting off topic, but anyways, this opening I really liked. It gave me the title for Moscow. That gave me Civil War vibes at the same time. So it falls in line with what we're familiar with Captain America. So if you are a fan of Captain America, like everything to do with Cap, then I'm pretty sure people will like Secret Invasion, especially because of this opening.
I agree. The tone, the seriousness, which just initially, not only this episode, but episode 2 as well, there's no jokes. There's no games being played. Of course, there's like a tongue-in-cheekness to Nick Fury and his kind of banter and Olivia Colman's banter, but this is a very serious show, which I very much so appreciate. Him getting the information. Ross is being very dismissive, which it played before we get to reveal who Ross was, but it plays into his character, because when we first met Ross in Black Panther, he was very dismissive to Claw when he told him about Wakanda. He was like, really? But so it plays well. It's like, okay, this might be Ross. But as he goes on, Prescott shows him that he has something that will set the world on fire, because he discovers these plans, which is later revealed in this episode to be the dirty bombs. But Prescott senses. Now, I don't know. Again, I've seen episode 2 times, Amanda. I don't know if it was something Ross said or if it was just Prescott knows him so well, because he seemed to, they seem to have already established a relationship that he trusts Ross only. But did Ross say something that made him trigger that he knew it wasn't him, or it was just a sense of like, oh yeah, I'll give this to feel like it was, he was so nonchalant about it? Like, was there something that I missed that made Prescott know that he was ultimately a Skrull?
I think for me, it was what was I don't remember exactly what was said about Nick Fury, but it was, I think that's what set Prescott off, because it didn't make sense for Ross to either say that about Fury or like want that information for Fury. So it was like really weird. And that's when I kind of knew, I picked up on like it shifted in the room, like you could feel that. And that's something that they do extremely well in this show. Like in this first episode, I was really impressed with. But I think that was the switcheroo. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening?
That's I mean, to that point, that's what I think is going to be the brilliant kind of capturing of the audience moments. Like, who's a Skrull? Who do we know? Because again, when we probably revisit it from once they release all the 6 episodes, there might be cues to when the audience can know. Like, I don't know if it's like what Ross is wearing, the color scheme. Like when you mentioned he was walking in the shadows, I don't know if there was like a tint, because when he was being chased by who we later find out to be Talos, there's like this green tint or a purple tint when he was like running away from him. So I wonder if there, when we rewatch the entire series, if there will be like, oh, that's how you can distinguish when it's like a Skrull or not. But so far, I couldn't tell you who's a Skrull. And I didn't know it was going to be Ross to be a Skrull, because as we see, Talos, well, we don't know him to be Talos at first, but we have a person chasing him, and we see Ross jumping to another building, and he falls, he injures himself, and we like, oh my goodness, we're about to witness the death of Ross. But as it's revealed that it isn't Ross, that it is a Skrull. But the question I have for you, Amanda, and this is where the speculation and the whole theories come into play. How long do you think that Ross was a Skrull? Because again, going back to the last time we saw Agent Ross was in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and we know that he was broken out by Okoye and things like that. So are we under the impression that Ross was a Skrull from like the first Black Panther, Wakanda, or we're just assuming that Ross was just a Skrull for this particular scene?
That is an excellent question, because now I'm like doubting everything.
So that's the I guess let us know in the comments, guys. How long do you think Ross was a Skrull, and are we assuming that he's been a Skrull since? Because as this episode alludes to, Amanda, when we get to a later exposition scene, they harvest the humans. Like, it's not like when we saw them in Captain Marvel, it was just like they take their identity and they just move on to the next, and you can't see who it are. But now they're like using them as shells, and we find out later in the episode, the longer you stay in the shell, the longer it's hard to disguise them and all that different stuff. So again, this is interesting. Have we been witnessing a Ross Skrull this whole time from his introduction to MCU, or like you just mentioned, was it between Black Panther, or if it was just a scene? Are we assuming that Ross is held up in one of these harvest places? So we'll find out. We will find out. But that's the beauty of the show so far, is making you wonder, who is this? Because, and not to get back into it, because now I'm just thinking about that scene when Ross calls to Agent Hill. How would that Skrull had have access to Agent Hill without having stolen Ross's identity completely to have access to a CIA, Agent Hill's like undercover. So it makes you even think more that, maybe Ross has been a Skrull this whole time if he has Maria Hill on like speed dial.
Undercover. Like, oh my goodness.
Amanda. But I will say something I did love, not only from this opening scene, was opening credits. I'm a fan of a good opening credit, Amanda. And I think from the MCU shows, there hasn't been many of them. No, Loki had they did the changing letters. Wanda didn't really have one. Hawkeye, none of them. I think Moon Knight might have, but not to the extent of this. This is like full on credits, who's in the show. And I saw your review on this, which again, guys, check out Amanda's channel. You had mentioned how the title sequence plays into the narrative. We're seeing the kind of invasion-esque nature of the show with the whole title card of them taking over the White House, them taking over the world, and the green colors taking over the atmosphere of the earth. So I love a good opening credit, Amanda. And again, to elaborate on it more, what did you think about the opening credits?
I loved it. I think I'm a massive fan of the Daredevil Netflix show opening credits. So anything that comes close to like that, or they just pay attention to the comic book run. They pay attention to that, like the source material. And I think that showrunners here, you can tell just by that opening credit that they care about the material, because for me, like you said, when you just see the green kind of taking over places, that is tying into the narrative, and it's foreshadowing what could possibly happen, because the last shot technically before Secret Invasion comes on, like the actual title, the entire Earth is green. So like it's not like spoiling anything, but that's just something to like keep in mind, that is
a looming threat. It's a fear from an audience perspective that this world, MCU world, has been or being infiltrated from a big threat, which in this episode, and we'll get into some of my criticisms, I didn't really feel the threat of the Skrulls and Captain Marvel. But in this episode, they did more legwork to make me as an audience be like, they're no jokes. Like they're serious. They kill some people, thousands of people in this episode, which we'll talk about. So I definitely agree with you on that title sequence, Amanda, that it shows this looming threat, that these aren't just wash away, throw away villains. They're going to be here. They have been here for a while, and they want to take over the Earth. We kind of now get into the episode with catching up with Nick Fury, and this episode really hit it, and it was almost not annoying levels for me, Amanda, but it was very like an emphasis on like he's older. He's a step, like literally he's a step behind. Like he's like limping, and like he's up there in age, which is something that I thought was very interesting. But he's greeted by Maria Hill, which first off, that's Nick Fury. He just Sam Jackson swagger out of. I mean, this shot here, him walking on this unidentified object is just like he's back. We haven't seen him in a while. But relationship side of the show, where Nick is catching up with Talos, who lets him know that his wife had died, which we find out later was at the hands of our main villain, or at least that particular sector of the Skrulls. And they again bring up the idea of this broken promise that Nick Fury told to the Skrulls, which again I think is a little bit too much pressure for a human. I know Nick Fury can move mountains, but to find a home for a civilization, it's a tough ask. But he does remind him, Nick, a lot of Skrulls are upset with you that you didn't find us the home, which, Amanda, I just want to throw it out there. As I just mentioned, Nick Fury is a mere mortal human being. Where is Captain Marvel, Amanda? Where has she been all this time? Every time we see her, she's traveling galaxies, different planets, saving planets. Like, but what about the people you had promised 20 years ago? Like, where is she? Amanda,
why wasn't this like her movie though? Why wasn't this her movie?
Yeah.
That's what I didn't.
It's a good.
I don't want to bash Captain Marvel. I'm sorry. Like I'm just so bitter. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to see him. I think for me, when you see that silhouette and they keep drilling into the fact that he's different, he's changed, the blip changed him, like all of that stuff. Like I think for me, we see a similar person, but obviously we're going to peel back the layers within the 6 episodes, and it's more Sam Jackson centric. I personally love this scene that you just had up with Ben Mendelsohn, the two of them. And I'll tell you why. Because like I said, we have no tie to Captain Marvel. I didn't even get their relationship in Captain Marvel. And actually, the last time we see him even talking to Talos is in the post-credit scene from Far From Home.
Correct. Right.
So again, that was what, 4?
2019, 4 years. Yeah.
4 years ago. That's the last time. Am I supposed to feel connected? No.
It's a great point.
So these two gentlemen, I was about to cry. I'm not even joking, Ellie. I'm like, oh my God, they're like forehead touching. They're so close to each other. For them to sell it after having like little to no connection at all.
Bring up a great point, Amanda.
This is selling me already.
Yeah.
It's making me care about the two of them. I don't care about anyone else in the show right now. And they sold me. So that's like the important thing within the first, I guess, like 10, 15 minutes of the episode, that I'm just like, it sold me just because of that.
You bring up a lot of great points, Amanda, because this show does have a lot of leg work, because as you mentioned, I know there's some Captain Marvel fans out there that, love the film, but I totally agree with you. Again, from my recollection of that movie, they established that, first off, Nick wasn't trusting of the Skrulls, and eventually you got the sense by the end of the film that Talos, Nick Fury are going to be friends. But as you just mentioned, the next time we see them is in Far From Home, and it's not even an interaction. It's a phone call. So, like, there is, like, as you just said, Ben Mendelsohn and Sam have to establish that they have been friends off screen for the past 30 years, that Nick Fury would have trust to give him his identity to pose as himself on Earth. So I totally agree with you that this scene alone built those 30 years of friendship just from that. And he tells him again, his wife had passed away. He tells him that his daughter Gaia has moved on and has kind of left due to some tension between the two, and also due to the fact that Nick Fury didn't keep his promise. So I definitely agree that this scene definitely gave us some character stuff that I really appreciated. Yeah. Speaking of characters, we get Gravik, I believe is how they say his name. We get a little exposition that he's one of the leaders in this new Skrullos situation, and he preys on these young displaced Skrulls to join his cause, and they're using the AAP, Americans Against Russia, to use it as a front. And his whole plan so far is to have Americans versus Russia, getting these dirty bombs, creating this kind of nuclear situation, essentially creating a global war, World War III, essentially, end off humanity. Is that, to me, Amanda, that's a little on the nose? You know, we've seen that, done that, taken over the world. But how did you feel the show handled this kind of, I would say, stereotypical, not mustache twirling villain, but like, how did you feel about the whole premise of like the Earth? We want to consume the Earth. It's like, yo, there's millions of galaxies and planets out there. Why Earth? But what did you think about this kind of this initial planting of the seeds of what our main villain's goal is?
I mean, it's textbook. You know, I think it comes down to what they can do with Gravik. I think it's going to be a slow burn and a showcase for Kingsley Ben-Adir. I think we didn't get enough of him in the first episode. That's my
we did not
thing. Yeah. I get that it was Sam Jackson heavy and we had to set that up, but I think as the episodes go on, it's going to be a really slow build for him to see how bad he can be. But it's textbook. You need a villain, you need a group, and in this case, it makes complete sense for what the story is, especially with Emilia Clarke that comes in afterwards, and I'm pretty sure we'll get to that. But I just think that it goes with the story. For it to be grounded, it had to be here, because I think that this will also have an effect after the series is done to tie into the larger.
I hope so. I will first. I hope that there is a definitive ending to this story, but like you just mentioned, I hope that there's still consequences and ramifications after whatever it is. Like, I do want a point A to point Z story within these 6 episodes, but I do hope that they don't just resolve like they just, we got rid of the Skrulls and nothing ever happened. Like, no, let's make sure that we're felt throughout the rest of this, which again is just MCU Phase 5, multiverse, Skrull invasion. There's so much going on, Amanda, but hopefully Kevin has a plan. Hopefully. Rhodey, we get a quick scene with him talk to the president that Fury has kind of went AWOL, so it kind of sets the seeds that they're planning it for him to be kind of this rogue agent kind of out there, and he's going to be blamed for a lot of these things that happened in this episode. But this was probably my favorite character in the first episode, and if I'm being honest, in the second episode, Oscar-winning actress Olivia Colman, who is not hamming it up, but she's having fun. She's having so much fun. She fits perfectly. She goes by this name of Sonia. Her and Nick have a history. She's an MI6 agent, and I just loved her presence. I loved her charisma, but also love how we don't really see people talking to Nick like she was talking to him. Like, Nick, you're old news, my friend. The fact that you got caught, just being Nick Fury being Nick Fury, and again, I love their band. He's like, I got caught because that's how I got closer to you. I love that scene, the back and forth, him being, putting the camera on the eye of her clock. And I just love that back and forth between them. And I also, just to give Sam his flowers, because he's one of the greatest of all time, he is so perfect in this role, man. Like, he's so comfortable in Nick Fury. Like, he if this was some other actor, I think they would play it like, so I'm Nick Fury, like Jack Reacher, serious military man, but he's just like, he's sitting on he's swagged up with his banter. Yes, I love it, Amanda. And in particular, I love this particular dynamic between Sonya and Nick Fury. What did you think about that scene? And are you like me and think that Olivia Colman might steal this show?
Oh, she's definitely going to steal the show. It's Olivia Colman. Like, she can do no wrong, this woman. I loved everything about this scene as well. We don't know much about Fury, and just to get someone who is speaking to him in the way that she's speaking to him, as you said, is just so, I guess, refreshing, because everyone's always like either scared of him or they're like
intimidated.
Like, I like that, but also, like, Sonya said something that, like, he's not out, like, I don't want to say like out of his league and trying to have this like work out for him in his favor, but it felt like she saw how old he got and she mentioned that the blip changed him. And like,
Him.
when we see that, and for me, it's like, you forget that it's almost been like 14, 15 years since like he, started out in this role. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this hurts. I don't want to see him old. I don't want to see him like, slowly fading away. He's not 5 steps
Yeah.
ahead of everyone. So
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
there's like the banter, there's like this dark underlining at the same time. Like you have those jokes as like surface level to make people forget the bad about
Yeah.
it. And I think that that was just so well written in that case, because you felt bad for Nick in that moment. So it was really well written, I think. And I love that scene. It was great.
I'm excited to get more of their scenes because, again, Olivia Colman, like you had said, is one of the few characters that we've ever seen in the entire MCU that has a character that speaks to him not only like on the same level, but I'm a little bit better, smarter, maybe a little bit more 10 steps ahead. But again, what I love that this scene did was, no, he's still Nick Fury. He puts the little camera there that at least that I don't think she knew it was there. Who knows? Maybe she knew. And again, it's just like this whole I'm actually ahead of you. So I'm very excited to get more of them. Speaking of excited, Amanda, I know people have their grievances and their issues with the final season of one of the greatest shows and most popular shows of all time, with Game of Thrones. I don't give a damn about any of that, Amanda, because Emilia Clarke will forever be my Khaleesi. She will always be the mother of dragons, and I'm so excited to see her back on. She's been doing her thing with movies. Hasn't been the greatest turnout. I'm looking at you, Terminator Genesis, and a couple rom-coms. That one rom-com she did with it was like
Henry?
a Christmas movie with Henry
Golding. Yeah, Last Christmas.
I like that movie. I have fun with that. But again, I don't think she's lived up to what she's been able to do with Game of Thrones, which it might be like a role of her lifetime, which I think it will be for a lot of those actors, John, Kit Harington, so on and so forth. But anyway, the Mother of Dragons is brought into the MCU. Now, this character, Gaia in particular, we've met her before, as again, going back to Captain Marvel, makes me wonder if her and Monica Rambeau will have a reunion at some point, because they were friends in that first. Wonder if they kept in touch. But she is, again, it's a lot of exposition. Again, this is the legwork. This is the first episode. She introduced us to new Skrulls, and this is, I put in my notes, exposition dump, but it was good exposition. It was important exposition because it gives us a better understanding of the Skrulls and how they're infiltrating the situation. So we find out that this particular sector, they're 500 plus strong. They have some Skrulls that stay in the compound that just kind of make sure everything's working good and everything's operational. Then they have their warriors, and their warriors they keep in human form long enough for it can become their natural form, essentially. So not only does it detect from humans recognizing them, but more importantly, their own kind. So I like that. It's some information there. But then we get a glance of how they go about using the humans as what they call shells, that they have them hooked up to these kind of harvests. They obviously, they take their shapeshifters, but then how they take their memories, which I think they alluded to that in Captain Marvel. But the whole idea of this is just a small scale, which makes me wonder, Amanda, like, how long have they been doing this? Like, this is just one compound, or are there other ones spread out across the world, which makes me, just like, oh my goodness, again, it sets the stage. But you hit it on the head, Amanda. I love the actor. He was so great in One Out of Miami, Malcolm X. Gavik in this episode, like, he was just too laid back to me. It was giving, I'm gonna be honest, man, it was giving me Flag Smashers, Carly vibes for a minute. I'm like, great actor, just giving us a very one-dimensional type of, as he was dumping sugar cubes into his coffee, and it was just like, come on, man, I want my villain to be a little, but anyway, it does get better, and it came off very stereotypical. I think you alluded to it earlier, but this first episode didn't do him the best justice until the end. The end, he has his moment, which we'll talk about. But yeah, the first time we're actually introduced to him on screen, I'm like, Flag Smashers all over again? Oh no.
It feels like it. It does. It feels like it. I genuinely think there's I hate this because it's 6 episodes and I'm like, there's a lot going on. It's like, there is a lot going on, unfortunately. So I want him to do better because, like you say, he's a very talented actor. But I do think the placement of Emilia Clarke is going to hinder his villainy. I have that sense because if you really look at it, you have it in like 3 sections, right? So you have Rhodey, you
Yep.
have like in Washington, and obviously Nick is going to be going rogue, and then you have them going rogue, Talos
Right.
and Nick, and then you have the two of them. So it's
Amelia
like
Clark and
it's
Cap. Yeah.
sectioned off well. But
Hmm.
they just need to kind of balance the writing a bit more to have it work. I
Yeah.
think, you know what? I honestly think either episode 3, as per usual, is just going to like change the tide a bit. And I think
Yeah.
episode 3 is going to be the one to really make or break the series for me, especially for Gravik, as we're saying. Like, I think
Hmm.
he just needs to do better. I think that also Amelia Clark was just, not that she didn't have anything to do, but I felt like she was lacking.
I agree with you. I love her. She's like I said, Mother of Dragon, but there is like this sense of like she didn't pop on the screen. Like when
No.
we first see her, she does welcome to Skrulls and goes over that exposition and stuff like that. But yeah, it wasn't. I was internally happy because of how much I love the
Yeah.
actress, but I wasn't like, oh, this just Gaia character. Oh, I'm hopeful, and as we'll talk about
Yeah.
episode 2, they give her more to do, and there is like this complexity, as we'll talk about as the further scenes go on, about her switching, as you just mentioned, kind of the switch of the tide, as she's kind of one foot in with her dad, one foot in with his new leaders. So we'll see. I'm hopeful because again, I love her. She's fantastic. This is the 30-minute mark of the episode, and we'll just kind of run through these final couple scenes here. 30 minutes in, man, we get our little, I wouldn't say it was a fight, scuffle at the beginning with Agent Ross and Prescott, but now we get actually like hand-to-hand combat. They find out that there's going to be a exchange with the bomb parts. They are able to infiltrate, at least try to get information from this kind of art dealer who we find out he's a Skrull, and we have a fight between them. And the fight was okay, but what I took away from the scene was Carlos kept telling Fury, "I got this," because I think, and they put an emphasis on that he doesn't want to harm anyone, but in particular, he doesn't want to harm his own people. That's going to be something to keep an eye out for moving forward, about him being reluctant to harm Skrulls that want to harm him. So I think that's something we should keep an eye out for. Did you have any thoughts on that action scene? And I thought it was fine. Again, it was just people throwing each other. I wasn't all that impressed. But the thing I took away was like him being very like, and they say it throughout this episode, he's hesitant to doing anything with harm, which I'm trying to go back to Captain Marvel. Wasn't he blasting fools? Wasn't he killing fools in that one? So now he's all of a sudden, he's like,
yeah.
Mr.
I think
Peace.
it's for the series, because that's literally what I got out of it. And I think that's going to make Talos a better character. I think he's like, for him, the development of like, it's gotten worse. Maybe it's gotten worse from Captain Marvel.
That's a great point. Time has passed.
And he really wants to help the humans. He has developed a 3-decade friendship with Nick Fury. I think that he sees that humans do have value, that humanity and Earth has value. But it's also like, these are my people. So I think that the more he struggles with it, I think it's going to come down to like a very crucial moment. Maybe maybe against his own daughter. Like, who knows?
Dun, dun, dun.
But like, I think that'd be really cool if like to have him grow, because I don't think Talos is really going anywhere. If they're developing him in this series, like I don't know.
I got a theory in my head based on the trailer. There's a shot where there's an explosion, and I think they're going to kill the president in the shot. That's a big spoiler. I think because we know they spoiled us, letting us know that Harrison Ford's going to be the president in Captain America. So something's going to have to happen in this show. So I'm pretty sure, based on the trailer, that the president will die. And there's a shot where like it looks like Talos is hurt and Guy is like trying to help us. So I'm thinking they're going to do a swap where they're like Guy is going to be the new Talos moving forward, because that's a big theme of phase 4 and 5 is like passing the baton. Even though I think there's still so much we could have got from Ben Mendelsohn, who's a great actor. I could be wrong, but I think they're going to end up killing him and having Amelia, because he's, again, this scene, he doesn't want to harm people, doesn't want to hurt people. I think it's going to end up getting him killed. But we'll see. Heel is chasing Guy. And again, we get the scene where he sees his daughter and he has a conversation. He tells her, which I think this was the moment where she kind of switched, because he tells her, your mother died. And she was kind of shocked by that. It was kind of like, it reminded me of Loki when Thor told him that their mother died. And he was like, all like, trying to be all tough ass. But then when he was by himself, he ended up breaking down, and we get the same thing with Emilia Clarke's character. But I think when he said that it was your people that got her killed, I don't know if it was directly killed her mom, or if it was like they were on a mission and she happened to get killed or shot. And I would hope we get a flashback of how, I don't know if it's important or not, but that's the moment to me when she was like, maybe I'm on the wrong side of history. But as we wrap up the episode, Amanda, we have this conversation between Maria Hill and Nick Fury talking about, again, they hit the hammer on the head about him getting older as far as 10 steps behind. But one thing that she brings up is him not being himself and him not being prepared for this actual real threat. She says his unpreparedness will end up getting someone hurt, which maybe was foreshadowing for what happens to her a little bit later. But even before I move on from that, what did you take away? Because we don't see Maria Hill. I love Cobie, man, but she's been so underutilized, and especially if we are to assume that she's dead after this episode. What did you think about that scene between these two? Have you ever bought into their friendship, their bond, this kind of father-daughter relationship? What did you think about that?
I used to. I don't know what happened. I think we didn't have like enough time with them to continue their relationship. But they sold it for me in like The Winter Soldier, and I was like, you know what? I love the two of them. Why aren't we getting more of her? Yeah. Maybe it's because of like her personal like life as well, that she can't give that much time.
Sure. I mean, yeah, she was on what was the How I Met Your Mother? That was like her big show for a decade, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe it was that, but like I like those scenes because again, we don't know much about Nick, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm loving it just because of that, and I know it's like long overdue that we find out more about Nick, but yeah, I like that. I like them together. I just wish we had more, like you said.
It just goes. They do have a good relationship, and I wish there was more to explore because, as we'll talk about, we're under the assumption that we'll get to it, but we have, this father-daughter scene is followed up by a literal father and daughter scene because Gaia meets with her dad. And by that point, she's like, okay, this is his plans. This is what he's going to do. It was too easy for me, Amanda, if I'm being honest, because again, I understand she just found out she lost her mom and her new leader was potentially responsible. I know that's your dad, but you just going to take, I guess you just taking his word for, I guess she's just like, okay, dad, yeah, my mom's dead. I'm just going to jump. I'm going to risk my life and risk these plans. I don't know. Was it too easy for you of her switching sides, or did you feel like it was justified?
I mean, I think once you find out that kind of information and it made sense for her, maybe not in the first episode because like it just, why you set that whole thing up and now it's like, well, I'm gonna be on my dad's side.
You would imagine this isn't they established in the first scene that this group has been doing this across the world. So like other innocent people have died under her being. I don't even know how long her and Gavik have been in cahoots with each other. So like I would imagine there's blood on her hands. So I don't know why now she's like all of a sudden feeling, like she's been doing the wrong thing and she wants to help the other. I don't know. I thought it was too easy. I didn't think it was earned. And I hope we get a flashback of like understanding how long this particular new Skrulls has been going on. But she's conflicted. She's going to help her dad for now, gives him the plans. We wrap the episode up with, we have Fury, Hill, Talos thinking they have the drop on the plan, but we see that they are kind of 10 steps behind, which this whole show has been leading up to because it's established because Nick sees this little creepy girl that he saw early in the episode. And we find out that the guy at the bar who told him he's not himself, and there was like a woman that he saw somewhere. There's like these random characters that we thought were just random throughout the episode. The girl who was kissing someone on the bench, it was graphic the whole time, just kind of following Nick Fury. And this is where I think this was like, okay, no, he's serious. He blows up this parade that was going on. And this is to me where Marvel's like, yes, we are getting mature because that's 2,000 people died, as we'll find out later. Thousands of people died in the scene, and not only that, Amanda, but as we see, Maria Hill's trying to get people out of the way, and she thinks she sees Nick, and it's not Nick. She gets shot in the stomach. Nick goes up to her. She says, "It was you," maybe the name of the title, and we end with the camera panning out, and we're under the assumption, Amanda, that we have just witnessed the death of Maria Hill, who has been around the MCU since 2012's Avengers. So 10 years. She's one of the OGs, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on this finale, the threat, and the question I have for you, is she really dead?
That's such a good question. I loved this sequence. I thought they did it extremely well. There was a lot of tension. Again, the score is something that, especially in a spy thriller, needs to come through for people to feel that budding suspense, like that anticipation. So I think the score is really well done here and adds to it. But the people in the crowd, you already don't know who's a Skrull, who isn't, who to trust.
Right.
And I thought that was really important. You have very distinct either objects. I think there was a kid holding a balloon or something, and that was part of the whole thing as well. So it's like you have them moving through the crowd, making eye contact, like something that simple will like get your like blood pumping. But then when you have like Nick and Maria, I was floored. I was pissed. I was floored because like I don't want her to be dead. That twist, and then like Nick looking at Nick, and then it was a Skrull, and then it was just like insane that way. Like it was just so well done. I don't know if she's actually dead because
That's the question, right?
wasn't it like one shot? Like it was one shot. Like they didn't shoot her multiple times. So it could have gone through her and she can come back. And there you go.
Not even take into effect that Marvel has really not definitively, they've killed characters, but not to a high degree, like a pivotal. I mean, Tony's gone for now. We always know that Marvel likes to bring characters back. But in my mind, I'm just thinking just from a spy espionage level. These are spies. They're going into a hostile situation. I would imagine she has a bulletproof vest on. Not only that, but she was a part of the Avengers. She probably has access to tech, nanotech technology. I am just under the assumption they would have been better prepared for not only a bomb going off, but bullets being shot at them. So, and to your point, it was one bullet and again, I would imagine all you need is one bullet to kill someone, especially if it hits the right place or the right artery. And then also, Nick Fury faked his own death. Now I don't know what would be the purpose of faking her death, but I'm being cynical right now. I should probably be, Maria's dead, but I just don't think she's dead. I just don't.
That's fair. That's good. That's optimistic after all these years. That's good.
Exactly. But if I am to play into how the show wants me to believe that she is dead, I will give her flowers as far as if she is dead. Really enjoyed the character. Wish we got more of her from Avengers. She was in Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, and Far From Home, but it really wasn't her. It was a Skrull. Or Infinity War when she dusted away with the pager. So if this is the last time we saw Maria Hill, Amanda, was it an effective death if this is definitive?
I think so. Because it's with Nick. I think it's with Nick Fury. She wasn't dying on the battlefield. It wasn't like a dumb mission. I think this was effective, especially with the conversation that they had beforehand. I think, and she opened the episode as well. So she was present. It's not like it was random. I think if it was a random death, just because like shock value, I don't think they did that in this case. So I think it was all about trust. It was all about who to trust with the Skrulls and who you know. And I think they executed that quite well with this particular death.
Great point, Amanda, because in her mind, again, she thought it was Nick, that shot, which I don't think it was, but she did say it was you. But I think she was just saying it was, it was a Skrull or whatever. But just the idea of like in her, if I was in her shoes, my mentor, this person I love, my best friend, however, the relationship that they had just shot me. But it just shows us as an audience of like, imagine your best friend shot you. Imagine your mentor shot you in your head, just thinking, not even putting into effect that it's a Skrull. So it's effective. It is effective. But again, my cynical nature, I think she's going to be revealed to be back at some point. I'm not saying she's a Skrull because as we established, when Ross died, you instantly turn back to your natural form. So I don't think she's like a Skrull by any means.
No.
But I think that it might be a fake death on our hands.
Possibly. She could come back as a Skrull though. If we're really looking at it.
She could come back as a Skrull. Yeah. You're so true. Yeah.
I don't know how that would work We don't know because
Yeah.
I like let's
Well,
just say
can
hypothetically
you
Ross.
disguise a person as dead?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like I don't know how
You can't take
far
their memories.
advanced their technology is. Yeah. So I don't know
Yeah.
if they could like regenerate certain because it was still fresh. It's not like they
Right,
had a
right, 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 right.
funeral. It's not like they had
Right.
any of that. Like it's fresh. So
Mhm,
if the
mhm.
Skrulls were smart, which they are,
They are. They got
Maria
yeah.
Hill,
Yeah.
insider undercover. Yeah.
You got a point, Amanda. We'll see, but let us know. So that's the conclusion of this episode. Let us know again. Up top, we talked about Ross. How long has that man been in Skrull? Is he being held somewhere at a Harvest Bay? What did you all think about the introduction to new characters like or not a reintroduction to Amelia Clark in the MCU, Olivia Colman in the MCU, Gravik, our villain, and big question at the end of this episode: is Maria Hill dead? If so, let us know how you felt about the character and her role in the MCU, or if you're like me and Amanda thinking that there may be a way to bring them. I mean, there is the multiverse of it all. You could just pluck a Maria Hill out of another multiverse, but let us know in the comments. And again, Amanda and I really appreciate you all listening to today's review. We're actually going to talk about episode 2 after this, but it'll be released next week, so keep an eye out for that. But again, like, share, comment. Amanda, if you want to let people know where they can find you, what do you have? We're pre-recording this, so what do you have lined up for this week leading into the weekend for the people to enjoy?
Yeah. Well, this is fun as usual. It always is. So you guys can always follow me over at AMXND Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, and you can check out my YouTube, Candid Cinema, which I think I'll have my own Secret Invasion. Episode 1 review is up, and then I still have to do my episode 2. I have Asteroid City. My review for that should be up as well, and then we have Indy 5 as well coming up. So I think within the next 2 weeks of when episode 2 drops as well, that's what I have planned for the channel. So come on over there.
A lot of great stuff. So definitely subscribe to her channel. Amanda, thank you for joining me. We're in the past. We're going to talk about episode 2 that you all will see in the future. But before then, subscribe to her channel. Check out all the content that we have on the channel now, and we will catch you guys on the next video. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.